people come from all walks of life. They all have lives they lead. Any and all are welcome here to come and chat with me.
Good morning, everyone. I say good morning because it's almost 8:30 here in Chilliwack. I know it's early, but I try to be as accommodating as possible when I'm for my guests because, you know, everybody's busy. Everybody has a different schedule. Fortunately for me, I'm an early riser. Unfortunately, I don't sleep well, and it's worse when I have something early going on. Enough about me. I'm really excited to have today's guest on. She has so many accomplishments in so many different areas. It's time to, before I introduce her, she is a keynote and a TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, president of the Rotary Club of Chilliwack After Hours. I think I'm not sure if she's a member or former member of the Mayor's Task Force on Inclusion, Diversity, and Accessibility, and the founder of Project Instigate, Leadership, Learning, and Growth Strategies. How cool is that? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get to know a little bit more about Fatima Zaidi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure for sure. And when I read your bio and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is so fantastic. I don't even know where to start. Do you mind if I ask you when you came to Canada? Because I think you're not from Canada originally, correct?
I came to Canada in 2006. I was 13 at that time.
Oh, okay, right. And it just seems to be that you're, from reading everything, that you're very much of a go-getter.
Just a little bit.
And I just want to let everybody know it's thanks to you that I first learned about Zoom because I knew nothing about it previously. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I remember, so I love to do leadership development, right? And one of the things about leadership development is making that human connection and connecting with people on a meaningful level. And when the pandemic started and everything shut down, I remember I was actually in the process of wanting to organize sort of something on self-care, right? Because that was really, really needed for people's mental health. We were in March, and I had booked 2 venues to do seminars on self-care. And both of those called me and canceled and said, sorry, we're actually not allowed to have people here anymore. So we're not going to be doing dine-in. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do now? And that's when I noticed, you know, Zoom sort of was the thing that was up and coming and a few other things. And I thought, well, I have always wanted to have a large component of my business online, but I've been afraid of trying it because I thought, you know, I may not be able to make the same level of meaningful connections online as I did in person. But of course, you know, I'm passionate about leadership development. I want to do it one way or another. So I said to myself, you know, it's now or never. Let's do this. And I actually put out a post and I said, who wants to help me learn more about Zoom and learn about Zoom at the same time for themselves? And you were one of the kind people who volunteered, and we met for, I think, about an hour, and we played around with different features of Zoom. We had fun. And looks like you started your talk show through that. And I started at that time my Power Forward and leadership seminars through that. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, it opened up for me anyway, a whole new world, right?
Absolutely, I totally agree. And you know, about that meaningful connection thing, I learned I was so wrong. What it takes to make meaningful connection is to just, you know, I'm learning that it's about being a good listener. Virtual, in person doesn't make a difference. I've made incredible meaningful connections online with people around the world that I would have never even met otherwise. So I'm so glad that I pushed myself outside my comfort zone and did virtual leadership development, virtual seminars, and gave myself the chance to experience learning to make those meaningful connections online as well.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many things. Again, I don't know where to start. Tell me about here is one. What is Biotope?
So what is Biotope? Um, in addition to leadership development, I enjoy pets. I sometimes do bird training,
Oh,
teaching my birds to do tricks. I also have aquariums. And like most people, my first pet was a goldfish in a bowl, right?
mhm.
And when I had goldfish in a bowl, of course, they didn't live very long, sadly. And as I grew up, I learned that that wasn't a suitable environment for a fish. I learned that a fish can actually grow 10 to 12 inches, and it actually has a higher bioload, which means it consumes a lot more oxygen. It also poops a lot more, and its poop also has a lot more ammonia and nitrites and so on and so forth. So sadly, what's happening in a fishbowl is the fish dies quickly because it's suffocating from ammonia poisoning, right?
Oh, wow.
So when I learned that, and I learned that that particular fish needs 29 gallons of water, and my tank was much smaller than that,
Mhm.
then I had to think about the environment of the fish.
Right.
What kind of fish can I reasonably have? What care can I provide to them? And ultimately, I came across the concept of the biotope. A biotope is when you try to replicate the natural habitat of the fish. And when you do that, they really thrive and they prosper, and they're just really happy. They live a much better quality of life. And when you're creating biotope, you use everything real. You use real driftwood, real substrate, real plants, nothing fake. And you really try to replicate where the fish come from.
Mhm.
And so as I was building a biotope for my fish, I thought, well, what about biotope for people? What about creating a place from the ground up where people feel happy and fulfilled and excited to come to work every day? And that's when I took the concept of biotope from fish keeping and brought it into the world of leadership in a concept called Biotope Leadership. We hear about innovation leadership and change management and all these other things. And what I like to focus on is biotope leadership, which is a new concept I've developed. And it focuses on taking organizations and entrepreneurs back to their core values and what is important to them and what is important to their teams.
Fascinating. I'm sorry, I'm so fascinated by it all. Okay, so now tell me about you founded about Project Instigate.
Yes.
Does it continue like Instigate, leadership, leading, and growth? Is that all one?
Well, what it is it's just Project Instigate. The reason I include my tagline, leadership, learning, and growth strategies, is if I just told you I'm the founder of Project Instigate, you have no idea what that is, right? The word Project Instigate is meaningful to me because project is anything that I'm passionate about or anything that my clients are passionate about. Projects or businesses or activities that really move them to their core, that gets them out of bed every morning excited and energized. And instigate means to cause ripple effects, to cause change, and to sort of push against the norm to achieve new levels and achieve new things. So Project Instigate to me is all about taking action towards things that you're passionate about. But just Project Instigate itself doesn't necessarily tell people what it is. So then I have a tagline, leadership, learning, and growth strategies. So they know what I actually educate on. And that's why when I write down leadership, when I write down Project Instigate, I just put hyphen and leadership learning and growth strategy. So they kind of have an idea of what that's about, but it's not part of the name. It's a tagline.
Okay, great. Okay. Now tell me about when you were part of the task force on, MERS task force on inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. Like what exactly did that entail?
So earlier you mentioned you weren't sure if it's still if I'm a current member or not. I think that's a little bit of a gray area for everyone.
Oh, okay.
So I'll tell you a little bit about what it is and why it's a bit of a gray area. So I am currently a member of it, but we're not actively meeting right now. We had certain things that we wanted to accomplish, and now we meet on a per needed basis, right? So basically, the mayor's task force was put together to increase inclusion, diversity, and accessibility around Chilliwack, to be able to have a conversation around, wheelchair accessibility, sidewalks, but also, it goes broader. It sort of stemmed, or at least I believe, it stemmed from the sort of the outrage almost that came about from the rainbow crosswalks that were turned down by the council. And this is sort of my belief and understanding that the mayor's task force on inclusion, diversity, and accessibility was created as a way of mitigating that and wanting to do better. So with the mayor's task force, there were people who were representing different diverse groups that exist in Chilliwack. And really, we are advisors to the city council. So city council will come to us with specific questions. Hey, we want your input. We want to, almost like a focus group. We want your input on this. What do you think about this? And we'll talk about that. So there's I'm trying to remember exactly how many of us are on the task force, but I don't think that's actually relevant, and I don't remember either. So ultimately, that's what it was. So we met on a regular basis. Initially, pandemic was, of course, an issue. We started meeting virtually. We met on a regular basis until we were able to produce a report for the city council and tell them this needs to be accomplished and done in Chilliwack. And once that report is produced and sent, now we have sort of stepped back, and now it's the city council's turn to step up and implement some of those things. Now, I'm so glad you mentioned the task force, because really it's not been smooth sailing. And I remember the very first meeting that we had with the mayor's task force. We all came in there thinking it's going to be a safe space. We're going to talk about change. We're talking about inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. And literally on day one of the task force, we had someone who showed up to the meeting who was very much anti-inclusion, diversity, and accessibility, and basically outright said, Chilliwack doesn't need diversity. We don't need, people of color. We don't need LGBTQ. Why don't you guys go back to where you came from? And Chilliwack is good the way it is, and it doesn't need to change. So it was actually quite traumatic. And again, don't quote me. This is just like sort of from my memory of what happened. Yeah. But it was quite traumatic. And right after that first meeting, we had to do a lot of work in trust building all over again. And it really taught us how far we still have to go, and that, leaning into difficult conversations, it's going to happen anywhere, and we have to be ready for them. The task force has come far from that, and come much further from there now. But that first meeting was actually quite, Yeah, it took, we were taken back by it for sure.
Oh, I guess so. I guess
Yeah.
so. I mean, that is, I don't understand that kind of thinking, you know,
Mhm.
and then unfortunately, a lot of people don't,
Mhm.
right? Changing the topic now. I know you spoke TEDx once before, but I think you are going to be on the next one, right? Coming up.
Yes.
And when is that one happening?
That one's happening on February 19th, 2022, 1 to 5 p.m. And Nancy, actually, for your viewers, right now for TEDx Surrey 2022, it's taking place at the Bell Performing Arts Center in Surrey. And right now, ticket sales are open only for friends and family.
Okay.
And so if you know the speaker, you can actually get better seats and first tickets. So
Right.
if any of your viewers are interested in attending that, I'm happy to extend that promo code so they can get their tickets sooner and get better seats.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Yeah. Now tell me about being a keynote speaker. Like when you're invited to be a speaker, you go with your topic, or do they ask you to come, or do they ask you to speak about specific things?
I think it depends on the level of speaker that someone is. So someone who's a, less experienced speaker, they might receive a very specific, and actually even the very experienced speakers do sometimes receive a very specific topic that this is exactly what we want you to speak on, right?
Mhm.
As you become a more experienced speaker and people just know you're a good speaker, they tend to be more flexible. They're like, just do your thing on stage.
Because they want you.
Whatever you do will be good.
Yeah.
So I actually have been public speaking since I was 7 years old. I have been fortunate to grow up in sort of a family of public speakers. So for me, public speaking was never anything new to me. I didn't even know it's something people are afraid of. I thought it's just inevitable. Everyone's going to do it. So in terms of public speaking, I've been doing it for quite a while. And in terms of topics, so the most recent one I had, the most recent keynote speech I delivered was on innovation in work integrated learning. And I was told that I could sort of pick my own topic, but they really wanted me to bring in that compassionate leadership component to it. So I had a few different ideas to put together in a very cohesive way, which turned out to be something along the lines of mistakes are essential to work integrated learning from a compassionate leadership standpoint. It's a mouthful, and I could give a keynote speaker on each of those topics individually as well. So it was really hard to put together a cohesive idea that seemed like it's one idea, not three different ideas.
Right.
But it was delivered and people loved it, and I really enjoyed it. Did I answer your question, Nancy?
Yeah, this is cool. Yes. Now you're the president of the Rotary Club of Chilliwack After Hours.
Yes.
Correct. So how long have you been involved with the Rotary Club?
I actually am a fairly new member. I'm going to say maybe a year.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I'm a fairly new Rotarian.
And you're also a member of the Chamber of Commerce, two of them? Mission?
Yeah, so the Mission Regional Chamber of Commerce and Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce, yes.
How do you have time for all of that?
Well, I'll be frankly honest, I've not been as active at the Chamber of Commerce as I would like to be.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm a very multi-passionate people, and I'm also the kind of person who doesn't sit still.
Yeah, well, I gather.
I can't. The pandemic, surprisingly, I'm shocked that I've managed to survive the pandemic so far, because I don't like to sit at home. And here I am.
Now you also are spearheading national anti-bullying campaigns.
Not anymore. So this was actually my stepping stone to getting involved in leadership development. This is when I was 16 years old.
Oh, Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
And what about supporting new immigrants and refugees? Are you still involved in that, or was that when you were a little bit younger or had more time? Shall we say?
So I went through a this sort of like a wave, I, when I was younger and I didn't have a more clear sense of directions, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I sort of took whatever opportunities that came my way, right?
Mhm.
And I was one of those people where when I felt like I was needed to make a difference in a certain area, I just rolled my sleeves up and I dived right in. When I was in high school, I was going through quite severe bullying, and there was physical bullying, emotional bullying. I had, in the gym, like kids literally throwing basketballs at me really hard. I had kids who were bullying me in class because my grades were better than theirs, and then when I lowered my grades, they then made fun of me for not being the smartest kid, right? So either way, I learned not to lower your grades intentionally to avoid bullying. It doesn't work.
Yes.
But I also had, even in electronics and metal workshop, I had kids who would walk up to me and just throw all my belongings off my desk,
Oh my goodness.
right? It got to a point where I was carrying a jacket. In the middle of summer, I was wearing a jacket so that I could keep all my belongings in the pockets. So to keep them on me and so they don't get thrown into the garbage or on the floor.
Right.
And I even had a kid who tried to weld my hand. And that's when I was actually invited around that time, coincidentally, to attend a 2-day leadership program. And that leadership workshop, the 2-day workshop, opened a whole new world to me. And afterwards, they asked me to join and help with an anti-bullying campaign, and I said absolutely yes. So I joined and I helped spearhead this anti-bullying campaign. We went to Toronto and New Brunswick and also South Coast BC, different parts of it, and educated parents and kids on bullying. And then from there, it was sort of a natural transition that I got an invitation to join another leadership program, which was called My Circle, right? It stands for Multicultural Youth Circle. So when I went in there, I attended that 13-week leadership training, and then I ended up becoming a facilitator eventually of that leadership training. And then I started doing some work for adult learning centers, different demographics, just doing overall leadership development and providing support services to different immigrants and refugees. One of the things I did was translation for detained refugees. And that one was, that was quite the experience. I'm hesitant to say that it was a rewarding experience. It was definitely an eye-opening experience. It was definitely a sad experience. I learned from that I don't like seeing people handcuffed in front of me. I just don't like that power dynamic. And at that time, I was a criminology student and applying to become a correctional officer. And after doing some translation work for detained refugees, I thought, seeing this in prisons every day, like, I can't do it. And I withdrew my application. But I did some work around new immigrants and refugees. And then eventually I actually transitioned into working with with homelessness and housing and poverty reduction. I did that for about 6 years. That's where my first TEDx talk came from, on how to end homelessness. And now I'm getting a lot more focused on specifically leadership development for entrepreneurs and businesses, and making sure people have a good environment to come to work for.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Now, with all of the things that are happening that you're already involved in, do you have anything new coming up or anything you want to share?
Well, I'm definitely doing more speaking engagements. I'm one of the things I'm really interested in right now is facilitating visioning sessions. So I'm hearing a lot about the Great Resignation and how 70% of workforce is about to quit their jobs. And really, my perspective is, this is a whole different topic. We could do a whole separate interview on, so I won't dive too deep into it. But ultimately, I think the pandemic has made people realize what's really important to them. And it's also made employers and companies realize that they need to work harder to meet the needs of their employees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the ways that any organization or company can improve communication with their employees. And I don't think you need any new fancy gadgets. I don't need, you need better HR softwares. I think companies and organizations need to go back to their core values. They need to go back to the basics of what do we stand for? How can we bring people who actually align with our core values? Are we actually following our vision and mission statement? So if your core value is communication, and yet you're not doing a performance evaluation, or one that's not a two-way communication, right? Or you're not clearly communicating with staff what's happening with the organization, what direction it's going into, you're not really following that core value, are you? So I'm really interested in facilitating more visioning sessions through my concept, the Biotope, and help organizations and company create an environment where both employers and employees have a better relationship together, because it's a two-way street.
Right. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, whether to be a help with their business or a keynote speaker, do you have a website?
Yes. So I have two websites. So one is fatimazaidi.com. That's and I can always put a link in your comment section as well, Nancy. And that one is my speaker portfolio. If you just want to see, look at the speaker side of my business. The other one is projectinstigate.com, and that's where there's more information on the visioning and strategic planning session, corporate trainings, even some marketing stuff that I do as well.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're just about out of time. Is there anything that you want to add before we sign off?
I think you've really well covered everything. I really appreciate you having me. You're a fabulous interviewer.
Oh, thank you.
I had a lot of fun today.
It's my pleasure. I love people who are so diverse and so go-getters. And when you tell me you started public speaking at 7 years old, I think, oh my gosh, that's so wonderful, so awesome. Anyway, thanks again. Just stay on camera for a second. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to include Fatima's link, or if I don't, she knows how to do some of those things better than I do. Thank you for watching the show, and I hope you subscribe and stay safe, and peace out, everyone. All right, off.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's a place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's a place to be, you'll see.